Hello everyone, I'm going to walk you through how to use Labster, our online virtual simulation resource that we're going to use to complete the atoms and isotopes activity. I've provided some screenshots from the actual activity that you are going to perform, and I will actually have you work through the safety simulation first before actually completing this activity, so you yourself get to go through and see how to use the different resources that are available, the lab pad, and all of that fun stuff. I'm going to walk you through a few of the things before I have you go ahead and do that. So the first thing is you're going to locate the activity on Google Classroom. So this is the page that opens up. It looks the same for any activity I assigned to you. I just so happen to have a screenshot of the atomic structure one that we are actually going to do for the project. You will see the same exact screen when you go to do the practice safety activity as well. So click start. It will take a few minutes to load, and that's okay. Just let it load. Don't click on other screens. Just sit there and wait for it to load for you to click on the start button. The next thing is when you first get onto the activity, Dr. One will introduce herself and kind of guide you through the different resources you have throughout the activity. And you'll notice in the bottom left-hand corner here, you have a lab pad, and at any point in time, you can open that up. And as she is speaking to you, her dialogue is written on the lab pad as well. And this little screen in the bottom left-hand corner is always there throughout the activity for you to use. She'll ask you to do a task, and when she does so, there will be these little arrows guiding you towards where she wants you to go. So you'll see the little arrows. I was kind of moved around, and I had to move my screen to the left to get to the locker, which was also highlighted with little arrows as well, pointing me towards I need to click on this. All the items in the simulation that you need are labeled. So if I hover my mouse over the item, it tells me what it is. Obviously, we know this is a lab coat, but this is really helpful when you get into the actual lab activity and she's asking you to use things like a beaker or a pipette. If we forget what those are, we can move our mouse around and hover it over different items to find what we're looking for. As you progress through the activity, there is a media page that will collect images for you that are important that you can use for your reference. So here, this is the one from the atomic structure activity that you will complete in this project. There's a different one when you go through the safety activity that you'll notice, where she gives you different items that you use throughout the activity, as well as a guide for the hazardous symbols in a lab. So that's the media tab there. She'll tell you important information, and like I said before, as she's speaking, so as she was telling me all of this, I could have had the lab pad down and could have just listened to her if you have your sound on. But if you prefer, you can also read along as she's speaking this to you on the lab pad screen. But you don't have to have this open, you can just listen. But it's nice to have both options there. She's going to ask you quiz questions throughout the activity, and your score will be collected up here in the top left-hand corner, which will then go into Google Classroom at the end, and that's how you'll be graded on part of this activity here. So she will tell you, she'll read the question to you, she'll give you options, you'll click, and when you get it correct, she will also even provide you with an explanation for why that was correct. If you answer incorrectly, you do get some points taken off, and so you can see here, I purposely answered some questions incorrectly, and you can see my score. If you get 100, obviously you get 110 out of 110. The different activities will have different amounts for their total scores. When you answer a question incorrectly, though, she does give you some information and hints to try to figure out what the right answer is, and then you can go back and try again. And you keep going until you get the correct answer. But again, keeping in mind, every time you answer a question incorrectly, you get a portion of your points off. Throughout the simulation, the score is collected, so in the top left-hand corner, and then your final score, once you've completed the simulation, will get put into Google Classroom so I can see how you did. Another nice thing about this is if you don't finish during class time, you may resume later on. So if you click out of the simulation and your progress isn't 100%, if you go home or if you come to class the next day, you can start right up where you left off. So you don't need to rush through this to get it done during the class period that I give you time for the simulation. You can always finish this right at home or the next class period. Lastly, so there's some tabs that I went through. The home tab is going to have Dr. One's dialogue as she's reading to you, as well as quiz questions. The theory gives you some nice vocab there that you may need or may want as you go through the activity. We went over the media. That gives you pictures of important images that you collected. And then you have a mission list. So you can always check this as you start the simulation and at the end as well, or anytime in between. And it tells you a checklist of things you went through throughout the whole simulation. And hopefully you can go back to this at the very end before you finish up and make sure you understand everything before closing out. So you are going to, before doing our atomic structure one, you're going to complete a safety activity to get kind of familiar with the actual simulation and how to use it before we move forward and start our project on the atomic structure one. You can ask me any questions. I'm happy to help. I also have the answers to quiz questions, so if you do get confused, please let me know and we can go through them together using a PDF file.